Hi everyone, my name is Burak, Arikan. I'm the founder of this platform called Graph Commons. I think what writes on the entrance text there is I think it's wrong, or I think the program has changed. So I'm basically here now for you guys to talk about Graph Commons for 15 minutes. So this is an online platform, graphcommons.com, where you can actually create graphs manually, visually, or import your data, or just use an API programmatically to interact with graphs. So it's an online service. Looks like this when you log into this page. It's an open collaborative platform. It's free to use. So it's the target audience for this type of product is basically everybody. Mostly the types of people who use this platform are like journalists, activists, artists, curators, archive researchers, investigative journalists, and so on. And these people use this graph system because it's quite easy to use. Obviously, just like the way you do hand-drawn diagrams on the whiteboard, you can actually come and use this platform in the same way. I'll show you some examples of that. It's quite accessible as well. So just browser, you just fire the browser, and then you can start using it right away. There's currently more than 15,000 users of this platform around the world. In many different languages, people make graphs of a variety of different things, and there are like thousands of graphs on the platform at the moment. And we use a single instance of Neo4j for this at the moment. So the way it works is usually, let me see if it works. Yeah, so there's a little video here, and there's a visual interface like this one. You can just define a type and enter in some name, make these nodes, then click one node, click another one, that's a connection, define the connection, give a weight or something, and then you can just, like the way you think in your mind, you can start building a graph like that quite easily from a visual, what you see is what you get interface. So you can make, there's some advanced features like you can make multiple connections at once, and so on. Also, you can import from a spreadsheet like Google spreadsheets or Excels and CSVs and so on. And once you import it, there's a certain structure for the template. You just get this nice graph, right? And now we have these features where it's a visualization interface, obviously. You can navigate through the graph by selecting, like the way you select a file on your desktop, and then highlight those paths within a complex graph, right? This is something that we usually do all the time when we're dealing with graphs. And on the right bar, we have these features such as filter the graph based on some properties of these nodes. They may have certain common properties, so you can use them to filter, unfilter certain parts of the graph. We also apply quite simple analysis, like degree distribution of the graph, or based on or the distribution of some property among all the nodes within a graph and things like that. And the nice thing about Graph Commons is that it's a social platform, so people come here, make these graphs, also share online on Twitter, Facebook, and elsewhere, and they can embed their graphs into like Medium posts or like a YouTube video. It becomes an interactive graph within a different page. So it allows distribution of the graph to a quite wide audience in the world. Also, there's this place where you can start building a community around your graph, because this graph it's not just a drawing or a simple data set. It's actually conveying some information to an audience about very specific information to an audience, and it allows anyone to explore very interesting aspects of a complex issue that we have at hand, right? So usually that's why journalists prefer this, because when they write an article that has lots of actors in them, they build up this story based using a graph structure like that. Or an organization can apply an organizational strategy for the multiple actors who are interacting in many ways among each other, using a simple tool like that. So I'll show you a couple of examples and then finish this talk. It's not going to be a long one, short one. We have an API as well, so you can just basically in this structure graph nodes edges, and then in that there's some objects, and you can just push in, and then you see the graph. You can query it back. You can use some of the APOC, those more advanced calls to the graph itself. And we have this nice options for selecting things within a graph, because usually a graph is giant and then not everyone can understand everything at once. So to be able to digest a complex system like that, you want to really look at a certain area, kind of move slowly, navigate the graph, step by step. So for that reason, we have many different options, even like a system for making stories out of graphs. Okay, so as an example, like we can also provide all these options for PDF exports and SVG exports. People make exhibitions with them. This is one example. This is from the Maxi Museum in Rome, city of Rome in Italy. People make with Graph Commons again. They made these amazing work, and then this is a journalistic work. It's in Turkish, from Turkey. It was about some corruption case that happened around the Erdogan regime, and then the organization published this like vertically to fit into the page and on the cover of the page. This is something we are quite proud of. So again, on Graph Commons, people make all kinds of organizations use this. Like again, academic institutions, think tanks, NGOs. So not just individuals, but also organizational use cases common. And this is how actually we sustain the graph as a business itself, as a Graph Commons as a business itself. So I'll show you some examples about that. These are all live on the internet. You can check yourself as well. It's public information. For instance, this one is called BrexNet. So some enthusiasts or journalists, I'm not sure who they are actually, but these people, it's actually one person, but I know a lot of collaborators of this person, made this graph himself. And this is based on the story of Brexit, in the UK, and what influences Brexit, in what ways, and so on and so forth. So when you look at the details, you'll see, I'm going to navigate this briefly. There's this, obviously these parties, like this is Conservative Party in the UK, and these are individuals who are influencing. I think let's see what their connection is. Like they're collaborating with this party, and these are all movable. Obviously, this is an interactive image. So you can see in this graph, like the green dots are like certain area. I think the red is on another. I'm not sure what they are. Let's look at this from the info. So in this info, we have a little summary of what's happening in this graph, the types of nodes, what they are. So we can see there are, in this case, players, organizations, Brexit campaigning groups, which are black dots, and then government institutions, which are in orange. And then in terms of connections type, this person made these maps and used collaboration link between different nodes among these actors, and also investigation. So obviously Cambridge Analytica had some influence obviously in this issue. So we have a map like that. So I don't know much about this graph, but I'm just showing you what I just see as well, like the way you guys do. I'm going to show you other examples. Maybe before moving on, one thing is on the bottom you see there's a license. So all of these graphs are licensed in Creative Commons license to the author of the graph, okay? And you can download this data as a JSON format and use it in your own projects as well, as long as you reference back to this graph and the author and so on. Another example, this is a journalist from Turkey who made a map about the Syrian refugees and the support network around them. This is international, national, local, and regional levels. So every graph has a cover page like that. You get the brief information. You enter in a graph. You get the graph in the background. Now there are these different cities. Like Hatay is a big city. It's close to Aleppo, the big city of Syria, and there are many camps around them. The blue dots are the orange dots are the camps, like these ones. For instance, here you can see many. And we can zoom in some of them. For instance, like this one guy is in the city of Hatay, and also this camp itself is a container city, and it gets support from the EFAD, which is a national organization, like the Red Cross type organization in Turkey. You can also see which countries around the world help to this conflict. From Germany as an example on top. Germany. So when I click on a node, I see the detailed card here. If there's information about this particular node, this can be a content, this can be different properties, all visible on the right bar. I see different organizations from Germany actually active in this conflict. For instance, this organization called Deutsche I cannot really read German, sorry, but they're active in Gaziantep, city of Gaziantep. If you want to see here what they do, they just do international help campaign. The thing about this type of graph is, like, obviously you can apply, network analysis, find centralities. This is a useful case when you have a graph with a very limited amount of edge types and node types, right? Usually, when you have a complex node edge structure, which many different semantic properties, it's really hard to apply it. So in Graph Commons, there is no limitation to what you can do in those kind of analytical tools, but at the same time, people use it in different ways. So this is an example where you have a graph where there's, every edge may mean a different thing, and then there's actually a semantic structure in that. So it's not easy to analyze a graph like this. But the thing is, in a graph like this, you see these comment section, there's a conversation going on. Like, people are asking, like, oh, what else? What about this other data type that I know about this story? Can you add that? Or can you, remove that? Or, things like that. It's more like contributions from the larger, wider community into the graph happens on this right bar. I'm going to switch one more graph. This one is about art. So in this case, what we see is that the connection between the artist, any artist, and its being in a collection is the relationship. So red dots are collectors, black dots are artists, and if there's a connection between an artist and a collection, which means an artist's pieces in the collection, an art collection, that means there's a link between them. Sometimes you have ticked lines, which means obviously there are like multiple pieces from an artist in that collection. For instance, this person, let's see, like, as an example, Selma Gürbüz, some artist, and is in like 3 collections here. Or we can see, obviously some art collectors like this one is quite big, and they have many different artists in their work. And if you zoom out a bit more, you see it's in the right hand side of the graph. This means something. There's a little centrality going on there, obviously. And so in a graph like this, you can start reading the influence of collectors in the art world, in a certain art world. Just very functional. There's only one relationship type, which is being in the collection, and then there's 2 types of nodes, artist and collector. Another example, I'm showing these because 2 minutes, thank you. Because as we know, like in the world of graphs, and they're like only certain use cases, like very limited and very, we only apply to shipping, systems or security, like in the previous session, or some certain organizational structures and so on. And within Graph Commons, people do all kinds of stuff. It's quite wild what they do. This one, as an example, is an etymological map, a map for etymology of alphabet itself. So for instance, this person takes a book and observes the book, whatever is happening in the book, and takes those, it's a dictionary basically of etymology, and looks at different letters and where they come from, and then makes those connections between these different verbs and phrases in the history. So something I learned a lot from this graph. Like, I'll show you one thing that I like. I think this one it is. No, this one. Let me see. Yeah, here this one. The word arche, it's a Greek word, is actually that has so many openings. It opens to anarchy, it opens to archive, it opens to architecture, it opens to archaeology. Interesting, like, this is something you can see easily visually. This means this is a Turkish graph. It means gelmiş means it's from. Anarchia is from arşe. Arşe is from arşios, which is from arşiokos here, and so on. Okay, so again, very a mindful of type of graph, not really very well structured, but it's actually, if you can build this more in a very complex one, you can actually start analyzing these type of graphs in a variety of ways. Something very technical, npm packages, Node, Node.js, and then Node. This is programmatically done, as you can tell from the background. So when we look at this in detail, it's a giant graph and shows how each node package depends on the other one, right? So it's dependency of node or libraries basically in the node package system. Very interesting graph, and I mean this has been very popular. There are posts about this online. I can you can find yourself. I'll show you one more example and finish this. This is Dow Jones is using graph counts, and what they do is like they did a map of the hurricanes, the big natural disasters, and how they affect which industry in what ways. So they write a program behind the scenes, which is analyzing this data, and then they put it into this graph commons structure, and then it generates these graphs, and then they can embed it to their own network effects page. Here, like what we see, I think is it says Plov. I don't know what story, like Duke Energy Company. Yeah, let's say something here. So it's like which geographic areas affected by hurricanes in 2017. Irma, Harvey, different places. I guess when you zoom in, you start seeing a city, and then what kind of things happen. Like they made each node into events, concepts, and locations, and it's a bit complicated, but I think still it's a good try. So it's hard to model a graph in a good way, as you know. It's a very challenging thing, but this is one example. So you can go to this page and then check out yourselves other examples. Okay, I'm going to finish. Oh yeah, one more thing maybe, and then I'll finish it. So we also, on Graph Commons, there are a lot of projects which are about crypto, things about crypto in general, crypto networks. One example is a good one, which is showing this is the analysis of the Ethereum tokens and the ownership of these tokens. So in this little filter on the right-hand side, I'm just going to filter it down a bit. These are the top 100 tokens with the highest market cap. And if you zoom into this, what I did here on the right-hand side is I reduced down the edge weight, and then so we filtered down, and now we can see, for instance, a token like REP have joint shareholders with other tokens, as an example. So you can, with a map like this, you can play this around also and see like who's more central in terms of shared ownership and so on. Okay. Thanks a lot for listening to me, and I'm just gonna tell you that you can learn about Graph Commons from graphcommons.com, and also at Graph Commons in all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Okay, thank you.